this session is about how to publish, preserve and cite your research, and a bit of this session's agenda. First, we check out the importance of metadata and different metadata that a dataset might have or research might have. Then importance of publishing your research and research datasets. A bit about citing research and especially citing research datasets, and after that we go a bit to the FAIR principles. I know you had this morning a session about identifiers and so on, but it's quick couple of slides about PIDs and DOIs, and after that we have kind of a hands-on section with EUDAT B2Share. And some of the things in this slideshow and this session is in the context of EUDAT B2Share, but not all. So pretty general stuff. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So, my name is Johannes. I'm your local tour guide today here in Finland. Welcome to Finland, everybody. I am a junior software specialist at CSC IT Center for Science. I'm also a computer science master's student at the University of Helsinki, starting my last year, and I've been working with the B2Share, mostly with metadata serializers and general software development. And with me today I have Chris, colleague from CSC there.
Shortly, I will just say I am the service owner for EUDAT B2Share CDI.
Yeah.
EUDAT CDI B2Share service owner.
And he'll help especially during the hands-on time. So, importance of metadata and different metadata that you might have with your datasets. So, when you publish a dataset or have a dataset, you might have hundreds of megabytes, gigabytes, even terabytes worth of data, and one needs to describe it somehow, and that's what metadata really is. It describes the data, and usually the more metadata you have, the better, but not always. Too much metadata might make the published dataset or a record, that we call it in B2Share, very cluttered and not so easy to read anymore. Metadata is also one use case for metadata that after publish, it is used to search datasets or research. Let's say every record that is published in B2Share gets harvested to B2Find, and some metadata transfers from B2Share to B2Find, and from B2Find to OpenAIR, and from OpenAIR to EOSC. So the records are findable from very many places. Also, metadata is very, very domain specific. Some parts of the metadata, of course, is same in all of the disciplines. Let's say the title of the dataset, title of the research, who created the dataset, and so on. And I have a couple of questions for you. What are the differences between, let's say, an astronomical dataset metadata and the social science dataset metadata. Can anybody have, or does anybody have a wise guess at least? If you have a, yeah.
I would guess the astrophysics data would be like
Yeah.
file size, probably.
Yeah.
It comes from a simulation in like terabytes.
Yeah.
You can use suppose social sciences, maybe text.
Yeah.
Is geospatial
What?
astronomical is geospatial?
No. My specialty is computer science.
No, for the astronomical data set.
Yeah.
It will be like you can visualize the as a
Yeah.
map or
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't hear first time correctly. Yeah. What came? Yeah.
Yeah, so social science data might contain about personal information that might make a difference for your privacy,
Mm.
policy, and astrophysics would probably be a lot of maybe simulation parameters or coordinates or
Yeah. First things that came into my mind comparing these two disciplines is that, let's say we have a nice big telescope and we take great pictures of the sky. We want to publish the part of the sky, the coordinates that the picture is taken from, also the instrument that we took the picture with, and so on. And then for social science dataset, maybe we are interested what is the size of the population that we did a questionnaire, or is there some like spatial coverage relations with the dataset. Let's say the questionnaire or the research was done completely in the United States or completely in Finland. And then what metadata is common between those two disciplines?
name of the researcher,
Yeah.
organization you're looking for funding for the project.
Yeah. You had.
title of the project.
Yeah. Also, when the research was done, and so on. So, I would say that there is more metadata that you can give that is domain specific. You can go really in depth to that, but there is also some metadata that is common across, let's say, all disciplines that we have. And I think most of you are related to some kind of a research institution, let's say university or so. So what metadata you think is important in your field or in your discipline?
So for my PhD, also in the project where we have physics simulations,
Mm.
so molecular simulations and plasma simulations, and they usually do parameter studies.
Yeah.
So for each file, and they can get quite big, you would have a whole array of parameters. Like
Yeah.
Plasma initial temperature, the label parameters, what would the proportions of the target and the laser is. They can be like a dozen parameters that may be different in each simulation.
Yeah. So parameters.
Again, all the same metadata like names, titles, when the research was done, a simple description of the research because it's needed. From where did you get the data? If you harvest somehow the data, what type of third-party software you use to process the data, everything connected to the whole process, the life cycle of data.
Yeah. For my field, I think one important metadata is the platform that the we run some algorithms, or do we use some generalized algorithm, let's say, for pathfinding, what was the algorithm, and so on. So, a bit about metadata schemes. For B2Share, we have a metadata schema that is used to describe all the different metadata that you can input. Let's say in the schema we have the title field, we have description field, we have the temporal coverage, we have spatial coverage, and then also, because this single schema doesn't fit to all purposes, it is very general schema. We also have community extensions that have these like fields that are wanted on some disciplines. Also, some metadata elements, let's say you have a license for your research. It is also important to state that what schema does the license follow. It is nice to know that your research is under CC 0, but it is to make the data machine readable and also easier to follow after many years, to specify that you can find the specifications for CC0, the Creative Commons 0 mark, from a specific schema or from a specific locations. And here are a couple of examples where you can find different schemas. So, about the importance of publishing research and especially datasets, you might have on your field, in computer science we use the ACM library and IEEE library and ArXiv and other places to publish our research, but why then would we want to publish the datasets that we used in our research? Usually you get the money from publishing the research because you have the results, you have the contribution there, but FAIR principles, definable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable is, if I remember correctly, I can check, came in 2016. It was a European Union project, and it gives guidelines to different dataset repositories and when you publish your dataset, what are the like common or the like framework how to publish and where to publish your datasets. I think that the FAIR, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable is pretty describing acronym. Also, at least I hope that you have read about the open science, from the UNESCO. Open science, I got like two main points why it's important to have open science: to create benefits for all or everybody, and to increase scientific collaboration and more. So let's say that I am a researcher and I want to compare some aspect between United States and Finland. And yes, I can do the same questionnaire or research in the United States and then in Finland, but there is also a possibility that somebody has done the research already in the United States, and then I only have to make it in Finland. And thus, when I have the datasets available for my use, it eases up my research very much. And yeah, usually only research is published in journals, books, etc. And there's also the question how to verify the research without source data. One of the main pillars of good research is that it can be verified after you have done it. So independent reviews. But yeah, it's true that publishing is not always possible. Someone of you, I guess it was you, that said that on social sciences the datasets might include some personal data, or as we say, it's sensitive data that cannot be published because it might violate somebody's privacy. Also, if the research is done for a private company and you have funding from them, they might set some rules for you that please do not publish this dataset and so on. But also it is possible to only publish the metadata but not the actual datasets that contains the information, the sensitive information or so on. So, a bit of different methods how to or where to publish your research and datasets. For research, I think all of you knows about journals, publications, let's say ACM, IEEE. Then there's archives like Arxiv. The difference between these two is that ACM and IEEE, that's more in computer science field, is that those are peer-reviewed, and to Arxiv, if you want to publish something there, it doesn't have to be peer-reviewed or verified the research. Then for the datasets, there are research data repositories such as the EUDAT B2Share, or some of you might have heard about Zenodo. And then there's like very discipline-centric repositories like, how do you pronounce that? Pangaea or something. It's, I think, for geological data. Yeah. And more. Yeah. And also one thing is that datasets can also be published in data journals. So, about preservation and publishing, more about preservation. First disclaimer, B2Share is not for long-term preservation, let's say over 10 years, for multiple reasons. Yeah, first, the B2Share isn't a curated service, so we get to that, I guess, in the next slide or a slide after that. Also, so it's not curated service, so we do not update your data when the technology changes. And yeah, there are different long-term preservation services available that promises to preserve the data for tens or hundreds or maybe even thousands of years. CSC has one. I think it's a national service. I have heard that DANS has a data vault, and these services are curated and might need some kind of special access. Let's say you work for a national archive and you want to archive all of your digital data for a long time, then long time preservation is a thing for you. And yeah, these services are curated. They update the file formats. The files and data are stored in multiple locations on multiple formats. And the data is, let's say, they keep an eye on the data. But even though you are not publishing a dataset to a service that offers long time preservation, you as a data publisher can make a huge difference how long your data is accessible. Let's say you want to share an Excel workbook. Do you share it as Excel file or CSV file? Or if you want to share a Word document or a text file, do you share it as or publish it as a Word document, a PDF, maybe even a .txt file? So the important thing is to think that how long this file format might live in the future. And for these questions, Excel versus CSV, use CSV. It's human readable data. And Excel, if you open it with a text editor, you see just random gibberish. Do you publish docx or PDF? Publish PDF because PDF is easier to open. It has a long history, and there are assumptions that PDFs will be still around after many years. Also, if you publish images, you might want to think about what kind of image you publish. Yes.
What about compressed files?
Yeah, like zip files. For zip files, I would use .zip or .tar. The Linux zip file, the tarballs. Yeah.
So those are expected to be
Yeah.
readable.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is to think about how easy your file is to open. If you can open with a plain text editor, let's say, not in a case of archive, let's say zip file, but in a case of database or Excel worksheet or Word document, if you can open with your computer's basic text editor, then I would say that it can last tens of years, maybe hundreds. I don't promise that to you.
HDF5 or something.
What?
Like H5, HDF5 or something.
Yeah.
Consider that permanent.
Nah.
Maybe when you have a specific repository in mind, you check with them, because repositories may have different lists of formats that they like to support, because there are too many formats around worldwide, and because it's more specialized in, hey, we can do this, but this is not our domain, so I think it's hard for you to give a definite answer.
Yeah.
It's 400 or I don't know, 5,000.
Yeah, but I also think that that is more for like curated services. So if I publish.
So I was just thinking like these human readable formats, they use ASCII.
Yeah, so the encodings.
For very large amounts of data.
Yeah, the encodings. Let's see, I have it in my notes.
So like simulation data, you would have to use some kind of.
Yeah. well, I do not have it in my notes, but yeah, if I remember correctly, one suggestion is to use like Unicode and ASCII formats.
Yeah, but if you have numerical data,
Yeah.
it will be too big.
Yeah, I know.
Simulation data that is like a representation of flows.
Yeah, binary
it's very
data.
different between 1 gigabyte or 1 terabyte and 100 terabyte.
Yeah.
It's not an option to use text.
Yeah, that's true. Then you have to decide what fits best for your application and make compromises. Do I have one point? Yeah. So, even though, let's say, B2Share isn't meant for long-term preservation, we do these like file checksum verifications. So periodically we take checksums of all the files we have stored, or all the files in B2Share, and this way we verify that the files are not corrupted. And then if they are corrupted, there are some procedures how do we manage those, but at least I have not yet found myself in the situation where file checksum verification report wasn't all green. So that's one method how we keep track that a file you have published is still intact. So a bit about publishing with B2Share. Because B2Share isn't curated, it's your responsibility as a data publisher that all the metadata is correct. You publish correct files and so on. And also that when you add, let's say, creators or other persons to the metadata, that it is your responsibility that you can publish those names. All published records gets DOI and a PID, so digital object identifier and a persistent identifier. Also all files gets a PID, so if you only want to share a file in your published dataset, you can copy the handle PID and send it to your friend. And by clicking that or opening the PID, the file will automatically download. File checksums are verified periodically. Record metadata is harvested to B2Find, and from there to OpenAir and to EOSC. And the metadata is published via this OAI-PMH endpoint. It's an acronym that I do not remember from which words. Does Chris remember? OAI-PMH. Open Archive.
Initiative.
Yeah.
Protocol for metadata harvesting.
Yes, that's it. And when you, or if you create a new version of your record, it will also get a new DOI and a new PID. And you create a new version of a record if you change files in the record or in the dataset. If you only want to modify the metadata, you don't have to create a new version, but let's say your research goes on and you want to add more source files or more files to the dataset, then you can easily create a new version and yeah.
With my trainer hat on, can I ask a question to check the understanding in the room? This morning there was a lot of information about peer reviews. Does everyone understand we are able to get both the DOI and the PID. So, and if not, maybe that's something to clarify or to discuss. That is a scenario we didn't have this morning, I think. So it would be good to know why it happens.
Do you know why?
No. I'm a very passive user,
Yeah.
and I'm surprised. So I also want to learn it, but with my hat on as a trainer,
Yeah.
I want to check the knowledge in the room.
So why does Chris know the real answer? I only have an assumption.
Yes, let's hear your assumption.
So my assumption is that it's better to have both as like a redundant backup for each other. And what's the correct answer?
Yeah,
I think that it was mentioned earlier that each PID is just basically for the data sets and everything that contains data produced by the research, and then the DOI is mostly for the text and everything that's connected with the authors, and again what is written mostly and not what's produced as data.
yeah, you're pretty close. The aim is DOI is used for the record. And you know, in a record we can have several data sets inside, and all the data sets have their own PIDs, but not DOI.
But why a single record has DOI and a PID?
I have referenced them because you know, DOI is widely resolved.
Yeah.
You know, widely resolved. So when you put a DOI, when you are publishing your data, you put a DOI, you know, publishing reference, they can always come to back to the landing page of the record. And then there you will see because data can be hundreds or even more, you understand? So then they have PIDs and we're different because the data are different from each other. And if you bring in new data, we have a new PID.
Yeah,
We still have the same DOI, but we have a new PID, you know, with a new version of that. So that's
it can be added to the same DOI, right?
yeah.
You can add multiple PIDs to the same DOI.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, so in Beatrice, when you publish a data set, you create like a version 1 of the data set. In Beatrice, we call it a data set as a record. And the record has all the metadata. And the version 1 gets a DOI and a PID. And all the files that you publish with the record gets their own PIDs. And if you want to add files or modify the files in the record, you create a new version. So you have version 2 that now has a new DOI and new PID. So the version 1 has one DOI and one PID, and the version 2 has another DOI and another PID, and also all the files, even though you didn't change the files, gets new PIDs when a new version is created.
So you have duplicates for the files, or you are still keeping the original files and the added files? Is there a connection between those two?
In Beatrice, a new version of record is created if you use the same files in two versions. The files, even though you do not modify the files are, in my knowledge, copied to the new. So there are then duplicate files.
So is there a maximum capacity per user? Because if I'm always changing something and reversioning, I will have duplicates or triplicates of the same file.
We have a upload quota, so one file cannot exceed 10 gigabytes, and then we have a user quota that is 20 gigabytes, but also there are some exceptions for these quotas.
And the basic thing here is that because if somebody quotes your data, make reference to it in version 0, you don't want it to change. So if there's another version, you create a different, because if there's another version, that means something has changed. It might be file, it might be metadata, it might be something else. So then we create a completely new. So that you don't, when you make a reference to a particular version of the record, that version remains there. And that's why we have the DOI for version 0, which is the first one. Then we have another one for the next version, which is version 1, so that when you make reference to them, you can always go back to exactly the composition of the files you are using.
Yeah. Also in BeatShare, I mentioned you can choose a good community that suits your discipline or data that you are publishing. Some communities are kind of locked that you have to belong to a specific organization to publish in that community. And if you do not find any very suitable community, you can always use the big EUDAT community that utilizes the basic root schema of BeatShare that has the common metadata fields. Let's say the titles, the descriptions, the spatial coverage, the temporal coverage, and so on. And yeah, what I mentioned, you can edit your published record metadata. So, about citing research and datasets, I think about citing research, I'm not the best person to teach you about that one. Most of you have higher degrees than me, but I have a couple of points. First, why we want to cite research? Because the creators deserve credit. Why we want to cite datasets? Because the dataset creators also deserve credit. The second bullet, this enables reproducibility of research, also belongs to the first major point. If you cite the dataset in your research, or you cite another research in your research, it is easier to verify and reproduce the findings that you have made. And also, when you, goes hand in hand with deserved credit, increases findability of data creators' research. So, when you have cited creator of dataset, then the creator also so when you cite a dataset, the creator of the dataset will get credit, and maybe somebody who is looking or reading your research or your publication finds out that, oh, there's this person that created this dataset that maybe it has some other use cases already made. And yeah, a good dataset citation includes authors or creators, date of publication, title, publisher or repository, or in some cases the community. PID or DOI, which version, type, and date accessed. Usually the type when citing to dataset is just dataset. Anybody want to add anything to citations? Yeah, so I have one slide about DOIs, the digital object identifiers. Yeah, what was mentioned, Beachshare creates datasite DOIs. Datasite is the institution that stores the DOIs, and we also send a bit of metadata to datasite when the DOI is created. DOIs are assigned to published records, not to draft records. We get to the point what is draft in a couple of minutes. It is used as a persistent identifier, so it can be used in the future also. One important aspect you can use it as a human, follow the DOI link, or it can be used as for machines, or machines can utilize DOIs to harvest information. DOIs can also be presented without the doi.org prefix. Then the persistent identifiers. Beachshare creates handle PIDs to record records and files, and if the file PID when opened, it initiates the file download. And the part before the slash indicates where the dataset is located. So 11304 is an indication for Beachshare. I think this link goes to the EUDAT CDI Beachshare, and the part after the second slash is a unique identifier of the dataset. Then we also have in Beachshare this B2rec identifier that is used as an internal persistent identifier. There is an example of it, and it is used with the beachshare.eudat.eu/record/prefix, but I do not recommend for any one of you to use this link or this identifier, except if you want to link records quickly to a friend. So it creates the URL of the record. And in my opinion, the best features probably in Beachshare is if you are creating a dataset, or you have a dataset that you cannot yet publish, but you can publish it in, let's say, 6 months. You can mark it as embargo, and when the 6 months, and set the embargo date when the embargo will end. It will automatically publish the files on that date. We have a nice citation feature that provides citations to almost all of the formats that you can find. We have the license selector, so if you're a bit unsure about what is a good license for your research or dataset, there are descriptions of the different licenses that you can use. Then what I mentioned, when you create a new record, first it's a draft, so it's not yet published, and you can modify it, you can add files, and when you think that now, yeah, this is complete. Then you click the publish record and then it's not anymore a draft. Also, if you find out that there is a record that doesn't follow, let's say, privacy policies or GDPR, or violates your copyright to something, you can report it easily. Yeah, there is a search functionality. Also, there is a B2Drop integration. So if you use B2Drop with active data, let's say you are doing research and you manage your data in B2Drop, and after the research is complete, you can easily transfer the files from B2Drop to B2Share to be published. Yeah, then there's communities, and last thing, if for some reason a record is deleted, the PIDs, the DOIs, all identifiers that are assigned to that single record will stay in live, and no new record will get those same DOIs or PIDs, but they will direct to this record has been deleted page. So even though you delete or you request a deletion of a record, the identifier stays in live. Yeah, I was quicker than expected. So we have about 40 minutes for coffee break, and I suggest that we start with the kind of hands-on section. So, did you have you used like B2Ins this morning or any of the EUDAT services before? Okay. 1 second.
Sorry, I have a question. You mentioned the B2Drop.
Yeah.
What is it specifically?
So B2Drop is kind of like, let's say, Google Drive. So it's a place where you can store active data. You can share data via B2Drop. It's also free, and it's Nextcloud-based service. So you can modify Word documents, Excel sheets, and so on and so forth there. Yeah. 1 second, I need some water. Is there any other questions? Or does anyone want to add anything? No. So, in a couple of minutes we'll move to our training instance. That is, if you want to test or check out how to publish datasets in B2Share, you're not sure if the platform is correct for you or so on. But what I mentioned about the citations, let's take a quick record here. Have any one of you used LaTeX as a text edit? No, it's not text editor, but as a, yeah. Have you used BibTeX? to handle the references. Yeah, so let's say you have a data set that you want to cite. You can easily just copy the bib text. And if you want to have citation in the way that your institution wants it, there are multiple different citation methods that you can generate. Yeah. Does Chris have anything to add before the hands-on? Okay. So, please go to, I'm not sure if that address is readable for the back row, or I can just
That's the
yeah.
TRNG training.
What?
For them to do anything, they should register.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
The link is not working.
You can register would be to share, it would be to access, you can use that.
Yeah, but then you have to put minus between training and
And then ESOPs.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Is this good enough? Yeah. Readable or accessible. To log into EUDAT services, we have B2 access. And when you click login, you should see this kind of a page. If you work or have a research institution, I would say that it is linked here and you can use your institutional login to log into different EUDAT services. If you don't have, your institution isn't linked here, you can use the social media or ORCID or
Basically, those your organization, if you are a member of a game, then you should be able to use your
yeah.
game. But it's not possible to use the social.
And because this is a training instance, the training instance generates fake DOIs and PIDs. If you use the b2share.eudat.eu to publish, it generates real resolvable DOIs and PIDs. So after login, it should look something like this. And you can see that there is a list of communities And to create a record, you can click upload on the menu bar or yes, or click the big button on the front page. And it leads to this kind of a page. Your task is to create a, let's say, dummy record for a data set that you have created, or you can just create a plain text file with some random content in it, or so on and so forth. The most important aspect of this is to get to know the different metadata that you might have for your data set.
Some of the communities have a little bit stricter
Yeah.
conditions for metadata.
Yeah.
So if you run into trouble, use EUDAT
Yeah.
community.
And if we open the communities page and let's say we select EUDAT community, there is a description of different metadata fields that you can fill in, and with good descriptions of the field. But to create a new record, click upload, give it a title, select a community, and then create draft record button. Then it opens you the editing mode or editing window where you can upload your files. You can add B2Drop files. If we have time, we can check out the B2Drop integration after the coffee break.
If you have a couple of minutes to spare, I don't think everyone is in.
Yeah.
If you need any help on
Yeah.
going around, so
Chris is.
I just got in now. I lost.
Yeah.
okay.
So let's wait until everybody sees a page like this with different email address. Yeah. This is the link. So,
But I know I cannot adjust anymore to the page. Okay. I
yeah,
have to-
that page. Yeah.
Some of you, if you have never registered with B2Access,
It might
it
want.
will ask you to register.
Yeah.
Yeah, it will ask you to register because it doesn't know you. So it will ask you to register, go and register there, and then it will bring you back. Then you'll be able to log into your.
Yeah. If you.
Feel free to share my experience as a non-technical member of the EUDAT family. Because it is a family of services, the family as a whole has one system for getting access to the various services. So this is not a property of the seems like a lot of extra activity, but when you do it for using B2Share or training instance of B2Share, this account is also valid for the other EUDAT services, which helped me a lot to accept the burden.
Yeah.
And since if you register, if you get yourself registered in B2 Access, you can use it to access B2 Drop later on. So if we have time, as he said, we will try to look at what we call B2 Drop, B2 Share bridge.
Yeah.
So that you can move data, either you are B2 Drop, you can transfer data to be published in B2 Share, or if you are in B2 Share, you can just click I want my file from B2 Drop, and then you can get things rolling from there.
So, does everybody see a page like this or another kind of page that states that you're logged in?
Yes, yep. It auto-fills my username and password, but apparently I don't have an account.
Yeah.
Okay. But when I have saved the info, it's okay, I'm gonna create one.
Yeah.
Can I use my institutional organization?
So,
do I
if
have to use any Gmail or?
if the institution that you study or work in,
It was in the list.
it was in the list,
Yeah.
then you can open the list and click the institution.
Yeah, but that doesn't work. This is the one. So it's going to redirect me to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it redirects me to the institutional login page. I do the login.
Yeah.
And then it's again the same.
Yeah.
But it's fine. I'm gonna create a new account if that's
Yeah.
possible.
If you choose a license from this list, can you change it later? Or?
Yeah, you can.
We continue further. We are supposed to publish data, so we have to create a
We can also wait for everyone to get in, but you can also, if you're already in, you can go around the beach share, you can check different records, you can check different communities, you can also on your own try to create a new draft or record.
If we want to sign up from the beginning with Gmail, for example, because I also have the problem with
Yeah.
my institutional email, what registration form should I say?
So if you, I'm not an expert with B2 Access, I would recommend that if you want to create an account with Gmail, you click the login with Google.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I did that, but then they said that, wait, I can show you.
that one.
Okay, register. And then they say the following attributes were externally provided. Edu personal targeted ID.
So you only have to fill in the fields that are marked with the star.
Okay, yeah, I thought
Yeah, yeah.
Question, so I added some dummy file
Yeah.
and filled the form. I even created a new version, and then I get these links, but they are not already used.
Yeah, so
There's a
The thing is, because you created a record on the training instance,
So
it creates kind of a fake DOI that
Okay.
doesn't resolve as a DOI. But if you want to see a DOI resolving to BTreshare, it can be done via the btshare.eudat.eu.
And then, like, if I was using the real deal,
Yeah.
then every time I create a new version, the DOI is the same, but the PID is
No,
not.
both are changing.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. And I get.
If you extend the file,
Each one has also
yeah,
has a PID, but not a DOI is for the project and
Yeah.
PID is for each.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So is everyone somewhat logged in? Okay. So if you're uncertain about does this community suit my dataset, you can check all the communities that we have. They have a description, what does the community do, and also, let's say, for this purpose, I think the best community to use is the EUDAT community. You have the description of different metadata fields under the community page that states that you can fill in these fields for your record. And to create a new record, there's the button and also the upload button on the top, and this title isn't the final title. You can add, or if you don't yet have a good title for your dataset or record, you can modify it later. Then from the community selection, you can select a good community. I recommend selecting the EUDAT community. And after that, it lands in this page. And here you see that even though there is the creators field, and it's just one field that you can fill in, but you can also expand it if you have more data about the creator. And some of the fields have, let's say, automatic parsing, especially the creator field, that if you write, let's say, my name, when you write it like that, it automatically says that this is the person, or given name and family name. It separates it automatically. Yeah. So you can add title, you can add description, you can, let's say you have an abstract and you have some technical information about the dataset, you can add both. What I said about the embargoes, so if you have files that you cannot or you do not yet want to be published, you can mark the record as not open access and then add an embargo date.
Yeah, if it's open access there, then I can find the project in the search bar and did you share?
If it's open, the open access toggle are the files that you have uploaded public or not. So after you have created or filled in the metadata and click submit draft for publication, the metadata is published on that point.
Yeah, because in the feature share page, initial page, there is a search bar.
Yeah.
And I searched versus the same keyword there, and in feature find,
Yeah.
the results are different. And I was just wondering.
The feature find and feature share. Briefly, it's done weekly. The data transfer between the two. Yeah. But yeah, when you click save and publish, all the metadata is published at that point. And if the record is open access, all the files are also published. But if it's not open access, only the metadata is published and not the files. What I talked about the licenses, there is the button select license, and it has, I think, pretty wide selection of different licenses. Of course, if you do not find a license that suits you, or you have some special discipline that has its own licensing system, you can also fill in the data by yourself. But let's say that you want to publish something with the Creative Commons attribution CC BY. It automatically fills in the license and also the different subfields. It gives you the schema for the licenses, where to find them, and so on. Then there's these are the, before the button show more details, are the metadata fields that we in EUDAT think are the most important ones for a data set to be published. And after that, it comes to metadata fields that might be a bit more unusual to have in a data set, or yeah. And I can say that very many people fills in the spatial coverage, longitude and latitude wrong way. So research that is made in Helsinki is then made on an ocean near the coast of Iran. Yeah. More about couple of easy to mix up fields. you have the creator field, creators that are the creators of the dataset. Let's say Chris has gathered a huge dataset of weather data. But so then Chris is the creator of the dataset. But then there might be some contributors for that dataset. And let's say you work on an institution that has a data curator or a special data manager, then you can also add him as a contributor or they as a contributor. Then there's alternate identifiers and related identifiers. Alternate identifiers are identifiers for the same resource. So if you publish this same dataset in B2Share and also in Zenodo, you can add the Zenodo DOI as alternate identifier.
Yeah, but if you are publishing just in B2Share, the type is mandatory, so do you have to fill these fields?
No, you do not have to fill in alternate identifiers, but as a not to get confused what is alternate identifier and what is related identifier. So related identifier is that you used some data to create that data set. So the data relates to that data set, but it's not anymore the same, completely same data set. Then you add the related identifier.
Okay, so in the alternative identifier, you are referring to yourself, to your own data somewhere else. And
Yeah.
on related identifiers, you are referring to the reused data.
Yeah. Or let's say we have this B2Share instance for Finnish Meteorological Institute, and the metadata is also, when they publish a record, the metadata is published automatically to this national metadata repository, and that adds an alternative identifier because it adds related identifier because it's not completely the same dataset because it has some differences. So not all the metadata that is published, I have to look it up quickly. But yeah, let's say that you used a book to create that dataset, then you can link the book as a related identifier. But if you publish the record in Metax, that's the national thing, and in B2Share, both with exactly the same metadata, the same files, then it's alternative identifier. Then the version field, it's not version of the record. It's created automatically. This version field is, let's say, this is the first time you are publishing the dataset, but or you are publishing software that you use to create, that you used in a research, and the software has version x.y.z, then you can type here that it's x.y.z.
You have to follow the similar prototype, like V1 point whatever.
No. For spatial coverage, you can add a single place, let's say it's Kajaani, or it's a specific observation location, observation location. let's say a weather radar, you can add a point, or if the research is done, let's say in Western Europe, you can add a box, or if your research is done in place that looks like a polygon, like that, then you of course mark it as a polygon and add different corners of the polygon by clicking add. And then, because we live in a spherical planet, it is important to note that this is the center of the polygon, not the opposite side of the world. So the polygon is generated correctly.
And basically, I would just, because when you are seeing longitudes and latitudes, so it's just if you are just doing research in your lab there without anything related, you don't need those ones. But basically, this is for these people who work in nature,
Yeah.
seas, land, all over
Yeah.
the place, because you have to know exactly where does this, some of these sea researchers, they have floating measuring equipment in specific places all over Europe and in the world. So you have to know exactly where was this taken, if they want to, for you to be able to do research, okay, this is what I'm interested in, then you fix exactly what it is by using the coordinates.
Yeah, and the location data that is published is one example of the use case is the B2Find. If you have, let's say, you want to search for a record or data sets from very specific area, B2Find has an option for you to search via location. Temporal coverage, when was the research done, or what is the temporal coverage of the data set? And you have to fill in the fields that have a star on the first level. And so you do not have to fill in resource type, but if you fill in resource type, you have to fill in the type. Yeah. So, I think that we have 3 minutes before the coffee break. So, if you, yeah.
On the bottom we had some dates we have to fill, and if I'm putting a date, an end date on 2 days after today, the data set is going to be inactive, like we can only see it? Or
No. So the temporal coverage is these fields are for are metadata for the data set. Yeah. And if you add date here, then it's a date when the files goes off embargo. Yeah. So basically the fields that have some kind of functionality behind them, let's say that you can filter with these, or it does something to the record on a certain date. It's the open access and the embargo date and the community. So all other fields are only used to describe the dataset. But the community is a field that states that this record belongs to this community. The open access states that this record, the files of this record are not open and those are not published. And the embargo date states that after this date the files can be published.